Hello and welcome back everyone for another video. So it is Monday again and I can finally do my Genesis and John Bible studies. So last time I did a Bible study was last time I did a Genesis Bible study was, good gosh, about a month ago. That's ridiculous. I didn't think it was that long. Given the fact that I was sick for 2 weeks and I couldn't record. Then I did Psalms. Yeah, about a month ago. So about a month ago I did Genesis 17 and John 16. So today I'm doing Genesis 18 and then tomorrow I'm finally getting to John 17, right? Yes. John 17, which was the one I've been really having a hard time with. So, as usual, like what I do is I will read the chapter all the way through and then I'll kind of go over my notes and what I kind of got out of this chapter, and if I have reflections, which it does not seem like I have reflections for this chapter. Let me check. No. So sometimes I have reflections in my Bible and I'll read those as well, but thankfully I do not have a reflection for this week, so I don't have to read one of those. But like I said, I'll read the chapter all the way through and then go over my notes and what I kind of took from this chapter. Tomorrow, when I get around to John 17, and that one I'm going to take a little more slowly. I will read the chapter section by section and go over each section at a time to try and keep it a little more organized. But I'll get more into that tomorrow when I actually go into the John study. So let's go ahead and get into Genesis 18 and we'll actually do the study of it. Alright, so this is continuing on from 17, where Abraham and his entire household and everyone who is in his family and either bought or born into the family were circumcised. And earlier, God had told him that Sarah was going to have a child. Excuse me. Alright, so let's go ahead and read. So it says, "And the Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre, as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them. And he bowed himself to the earth, and said, O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree, while I bring a morsel of bread, that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant." So they said, "Do as you've said." And Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah, and said, "Quick, 3 seahs of fine flour, knead it and make cakes." And Abraham ran to the herd, and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to a young man who prepared it quickly. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared, and set it before them, as he stood by them under the tree while they ate. They said to him, "Where is Sarah, your wife?" And he said, "She is in the tent." The Lord said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, shall have a son." And Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in years. The way of women had ceased to be with Sarah. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, After I am worn out and my Lord is old, shall I have pleasure? The Lord said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh and say, Shall I indeed bear a child now that I'm old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time I will turn to you about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. But Sarah denied it, said, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. He said, No, but you did laugh. Then the men set out from there, and they went and they looked down toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to set them on their way. The Lord said, Shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have chosen him that he may command his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, so that the Lord may bring Abraham that he has promised him. Then the Lord said, because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and their sin is very grave, I will go down to see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry that has come to me. And if not, I will know. Now this is where Anna intercedes for Sodom. Okay, so the men turned from there and went toward Sodom, but Abraham stood before the Lord. Then Abraham drew near and said, will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Will you then sweep away the place and not spare for the 50 righteous who are in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to put the righteous to death with the wicked, so the righteous fare as the wicked. Far be that from you. Shall not the judge of all the earth do what is just? And the Lord said, if I find at Sodom 50 righteous in the city, I will spare the whole place for their sake. Abraham answered and said, behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord, I who am but dust and ashes. Suppose 5 of the 50 righteous are lacking. Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5? And he said, I will not destroy it if I find 45 there. Again he spoke to him and said, suppose 40 are found there. He answered, for the sake of 40 I will not do it. Then he said, oh, let the Lord not be angry, and I will speak. Suppose 30 are found there. He answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. He said, behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord. Suppose 20 are found there. He answered, for the sake of 20 I will not destroy it. Then he said, O Lord, or let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak again but this once. Suppose 10 are found there. He answered, for the sake of 10 I will not destroy it. And the Lord went his way when he had finished speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. Hey, big girl. Alright. Excuse me. Oops. So that is the entire chapter of 18. Okay. There's Big Girl. Hi, sweetheart. So yeah. And there's Lucy's in the back there. Okay. So anyways. So going into like the actual details of it now. Of the actual story. So the whole entire gist of this entire chapter is that there are 3 people appearing over to Abraham's door, his technical tent actually, and Abraham prepares dinner or lunch for them, and then he has a conversation with God saying, hey, Sarah's gonna have a child, and then they move on towards Sodom, and then the 2 men continue going down to Sodom, and Abraham decides to stand with God or the Lord and have a conversation with him about how many people, or if he finds a certain amount of people in Sodom that are righteous, and whether or not he will destroy the entire city with them against. you get what I'm saying? Still come. He's basically saying, if you find a certain amount of people who are righteous, who are godly, if he will destroy them along with everyone else in the entire city. Okay, so that's the whole entire point of the chapter. So the first thing I wanted to point out is the Oaks of Mamre. Okay, so the Oaks of Mamre is an extremely significant place in Abraham's life. He built an altar there, and you can find that in Genesis 13:18. He eventually stayed there at one point in Genesis 14:13. He purchased a field or cave in there from 23:17 through 19, and then eventually he was buried there in chapter 49:30, and then in 50:13. So yeah, the Oaks of Mamre is an extremely important place to Abraham and in his whole entire timeline. So then we get into the fact that there is 3 men standing before him. Okay, and We know one of them is the Lord, and then two of them are just some strange men he doesn't even know. But even still, even though he doesn't know them, or he doesn't know if they're important or not, he still treats them with complete humility and respect by bowing himself to the earth. So he still honored them quite a bit by doing that. And then, of course, he offers them water to wash their feet. He offers them a morsel of bread. He offers them food, which he goes and does that. He goes in, he tells his wife, Sarah, to take 3 seahs, which seah is about 3 quarts or 7.3 liters. And this is of flour. So he tells her to make it, knead it, and make it into cakes. He goes and takes a calf, and he gives it to a young man who prepares it quickly for him. Then he takes the curds, the milk, the calf, and he prepares it for these men. And then he just, as I said, as they're eating, it says he stood by them under the tree while they ate. So on top of giving them food and giving them water to wash their feet, he watches over them while they're eating. Okay. So then he goes, and the Lord's asking him, hey, where's your wife? She's inside the tent. Then he goes on to say, hey, by this time next year, Sarah, your wife will have a son. And that kind of points out, hey, that Abraham and Sarah were advanced in years. Okay, so Abraham is about, Sarah is 99 years old, or 90 years old, and Abraham is about 100 years old. Now, between 17 and 18, when 17 he got him and his entire household, all the men got circumcised. There was about a 3-month gap between the two of them before this entire event happened. So not a whole lot of time passed. He's still about 99 years old, 100 years old, and she's still about 90. We don't exactly know when their birthdays are, so he could be like 99, 100 years old. She's close to somewhere in her 90s. Okay. So he says, hey, despite the fact that you and your wife are old, your wife is going to have a son, she's extremely well past the age of childbearing, okay? Physically, there should be no possible way for her to have a kid at this age, but yet God is dramatically repeating his promise, saying that, hey, she's going to have a child. Because earlier, in chapter 17, verse 19, he says, no, but Sarah, your wife shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. Okay, so this is the second time he's telling Abraham, hey, your wife is going to have a son. Okay, so at this point, he's literally dramatizing it. He's being dramatic about it. And one thing I want to do is maybe the reason why he's kind of repeating this like 3 times is because sometimes we really do need to hear God's promises over and over again to kind of remind us that this is what he's saying, this is what's going to happen. He's not just going to tell us, hey, this is going to happen, and then not actually do it. Okay, so he's basically restating the fact that his wife is going to have a child, and he's basically reminding him, hey, keep in mind for this. This is what's going to happen. This is what I'm promising. I'm going to make it happen. Okay, so Sarah is at the tent door just kind of listening, and she laughs to herself about saying she's really old, she's worn out, her Lord, her husband, is extremely old, they're really past the point of childbearing, it's not really possible for her to have a kid, and she's really questioning it. So she laughs to herself, and usually when you laugh to yourself, it's like really quiet, you can't really hear it. But at that point, she's doing that because she really just can't believe that this is going to be a possibility, that he's going to grant them a child, and she's just really just not, she's really just questioning it. She just doesn't understand how it's possible, and yet when God heard her laughing to herself, he's been asking it, Is there anything too hard for the Lord? And at what point we already know there's nothing too hard for God to do, because he's made things impossible to do. He did the whole entire flood of killing everyone. Okay. In the New Testament, we already know that he's risen people from the dead. He's healed sick. He's cured blindness. Okay, so we already know physically and in every aspect there's nothing too hard for God to do. Okay, which is why he's asking, like, hey, is there anything too hard for the Lord to do? And then he restates his promise a third time, saying, hey, at the appointed time I will return to you about this time next year, and Sarah shall have a son. Okay, so he's now restating it a third time, saying, hey, you're gonna have a son. She is going to be the mother. It's not gonna be a surrogate mother. It's not gonna be like an adoption thing. It's not gonna be him and Haggai again with having a child. Is gonna be physically her child. She's gonna get pregnant. She's gonna give birth to the child. She's gonna carry the child for the entire 9 months. It is physically, in every way, going to be her child. Okay. So then it goes on to saying that the men set out from there and they go towards Sodom. Now they're going towards Sodom to go purifying it. They're going to go to Sodom to try and take care of all the sinful people that are there at the moment. And at this current point, we don't know who the two men are. We just know one of the three men is God. Okay. And then he has a conversation with himself, basically, for a moment, saying, hey, shall I hide from Abraham what I'm about to do, seeing that Abraham will surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. So right now he's trying to figure out if whether or not he should tell Abraham what he's about to do, because right now he is about to go and destroy all of Sodom. Because Sodom and Gomorrah is extremely sinful. It is extremely a terrible city, and which we will find out that in 19. It is a horrible, horrible city. And he is going to go and take a look at the city firsthand for himself to see whether or not it is as bad as the outcry is to him, and then if it is, he's going to destroy it. So right now he's basically trying to figure out if he should tell Abraham or not, because he has chosen Abraham to he has chosen him that he may command his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing righteousness and justice, so the Lord may bring Abraham to what he has promised him. So right now he's basically asking himself the question, and he's revealing what he's thinking to us, the readers. Okay, so he's trying to decide whether or not he should tell everybody, which obviously we know that he did. Okay, because the next verse he says, because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and their sin is very grave, I will go down to see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry that came to me, and if not, I will know. And the whole part, like, it's not actually stated in it. He should say, and I will know. We're to kind of get the idea that, hey, if he knows, and it is as bad as it is, he's going to destroy it. Okay, so first he states that Sodom and Gomorrah is extremely sinful. There's an outcry going against Sodom and Gomorrah. Their sin is extremely horrible, and God is going to go down there and he's going to go discovering whether or not Sodom and Gomorrah is as bad as the outcry is saying to him. So then the two men, which, like I said, the two men who at this time in this chapter, we don't know who they are. But if you kind of look into chapter 19, get a little bit of a head start onto it, the first thing you see in 19, it says the two angels came to Sodom in the evening. So now, like I said, and this is jumping ahead. So now we know that the two men are two angels, and the third person was God. So the two men, they continue on going to Sodom, and Abraham stays with the Lord to talk, okay? Because right now he knows that God is going to go and destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. So now he's trying to figure out if there's anyone righteous in that city, will God spare them? Which is why he says, will you indeed sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Enough. My phone just going off. So he says, will you sweep away the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous who are in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to put the righteous to death with the wicked, so the righteous fare as the wicked. Far be that you. Shall not the judge of the earth do what is just? Okay, and now, unless you're reading this along with me, you guys aren't going to see the fact that when it says, shall not the judge, and the judge is capital, okay? So he's basically saying, so he sees God as a righteous judge, not like an actual. If you go into an actual court, there's the judge. Okay, see, he sees him as the judge, the one who's going to determine right or wrong. You go to prison, you walk free, that kind of sort of thing. So he sees God as being a judge, and he is trying to say, hey, are you going to punish the righteous along with the wicked? Okay, the righteous haven't done anything wrong, so you really shouldn't punish them for these people, because they're horrible and terrible people, and they're not. Okay, so he's trying to not really make him feel guilty. He's just trying to, I don't know, plead for their case, basically. And then God says, the Lord says, if I find at Sodom 50 righteous in the city, I will spare the whole place for their sake. So right off the bat, we are already getting the clear picture from God saying, hey, if there is indeed 50 righteous people in that city, he's going to spare them. So right off the bat, he's proven himself to be a righteous judge. Then Abraham continues going on to say, if there is 5 less than 50, will you spare the city? So now he's got 45 people. And he says, I will not destroy it if I find 45 there. And now Abraham is focusing on numbers. How far down of a number can he get God to go to? Suppose there are 40 found there. I will not, for the sake of 40, I will not do it. And then he's saying 30. Is there 30 found that are righteous? Will you destroy the city? No. I will not do it if I find 30 there. For the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. And each time, every so often, he's saying, let not the Lord be angry, and I will speak. He's basically trying to say, hey, I'm not trying to be pushy. I'm not trying to make you angry. I am just trying to find a number that you're willing to compromise on, basically. So he says, oh, let the Lord not be angry, and I will speak but this once. Suppose 10 are found there. Suppose 10 righteous people are found there. Will you destroy the city? And then he says, and then God answers for the last time, saying, for the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. And then he goes his way, and Abraham returns home. Alright, so really do apologize that the audio and the video at the end of this one decided to just kind of kapooty on me. But don't worry, I have a couple photos for you guys to just kind of chill and relax to while I do an audio overlay. We're basically at the end of the chapter anyway, so there's not too much I need to add to it. After Abraham and God went their separate ways, Abraham went home to his own place. The Lord went to wherever he was going to. And that is pretty much the end of the chapter. Abraham was interceding for Sodom. He managed to get God to lower that down to 10 righteous people, if he can find any. And then it goes into chapter 19, where we find out that obviously the 2 men that we didn't know who were angels. And he is literally going to go and rescue Lot. So that is all of it. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, just hit the subscribe, like, share, hit the bell button so you get notifications, and stay tuned for the next video, which I will be doing on John. Alright, so you guys have a great weekend, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Alright, bye guys.